Recording has started. Okay, beloveds, happy Wednesday, Grand Rising, and welcome to the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living Midweek Oasis. I'm Reverend Sunshine Michelle Coleman, your senior minister, and I'm your host tonight. Our own Paul Pursuti is taking some time off to be with his family, so myself and Reverend Allie Hutchison are filling in for him, along with Judith Roberts, who will be continuing as a co-host. So I welcome you to our midweek Oasis Wednesday night service. So glad to be with you tonight. This service in particular, this gathering, is a place where we come together as a beloved community to be spiritually refreshed between Sundays. Most Wednesday night services build upon the theme of the previous Sunday talk, sharing in a satsang style, expressing science of mind principles and practices with the intention that these gatherings be informal, intimate, and interactive. For this year's annual global theme for Centers for Spiritual Living 2024 is a grand rising. And our theme for the month of August is unstatus quo. Last Sunday, Reverend Allie Hutchison knocked it out of the park as she spoke and introduced ideas inspired by this talk title that we're exploring tonight also, called The Impact of Othering. And tonight our speaker will continue to dive into this same topic. Reverend Allie happens to be on with us tonight and is serving as a source of comfort care, should you call it that, if anyone needs to talk or pray with someone at the end of service. I'll remind you again at the end of our gathering. So as we gather tonight, I really want to welcome you. And the team here has reminded me over and over, at least our Paul does, that early in my ministry at Oakland Center, I offered 6 C's for us that actually continue to serve us. And those 6 C's are compassion, when we come with a heart of love and tenderness; communication, as we come ready to exchange openly; camaraderie, as we come in friendship and family and as beloved community; communion, as we come in harmony and ready to share; collaboration, as we come in partnership and cooperation; and last but certainly not least, consciousness. It's all about consciousness, to come in spiritual awareness and truth. Tonight, these 6 C's will serve us as we explore this wonderful topic this evening. If you happen to be new to our community, either on this Zoom recording live, or if you catch the recording later, we want to welcome you to visit our website at www.oaklandcsl.org. When you get to that homepage, there's a box there that says I'm new. If you click on that, it'll take you to a page. You look at the lower left-hand corner of that particular page and you can submit your email address. When you do that, you'll begin receiving our weekly e-newsletter called The Village News. And in that, you'll find all sorts of information that's happening at our center in the upcoming weeks. A few housekeeping notes before we begin our talk tonight. If you would mute your own audio microphone during tonight's service, that will serve our recording and the transmission better. You can leave your video camera on should you wish. And when you mute your audio, it will improve the quality of our recording. Please stay tuned through the end of the service, and I'll give you some special and important announcements. So now I'd like to introduce our speaker for the night, our own practitioner, Judith Roberts, who has been a practitioner at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living for over 10 years. Professionally, she serves as a trainer and an instructional designer. Avocationally, she is, listen to this, she's a singer, She's a sound healer. She's studied the student of shamanism. She's a hiker, a beach girl, and a mom of 2 cats. We welcome Judith tonight. But first, as we always do in anything, we always open and close in prayer. And tonight, our own practitioner, Alice Knudsen, is going to open us in prayer. Alice, would you please?
Okay, so everyone just take a nice deep breath. Just know that this is a healing breath. This is the breath of life. So in stillness where we are right here and right now, I know that God is everywhere present, back of everything. So there's only one life, and that life is God's life. And that life is perfect, whole, and complete. And that life is my life, right here and right now. And what a joy it is to come together tonight and to come together in prayer, knowing that Spirit is everywhere present and that our time together is sacred. We are blessed by this holy presence of goodness, of light, of love. And every word that is spoken tonight is divinely guided by Spirit. And I take this moment to speak my word and to bless Judith for all the wisdom and the love and all the love she has poured into preparing this talk, and all the hearts that will open, and all the experiences that will be shared. And God is back of everything, guiding us perfectly in this beautiful evening that we're sharing together tonight. So allow your heart to be open and allow Spirit to guide you as this event takes place tonight, and it will be a miracle of sorts. And we will all walk away filled to the brim with God's love, with having shared it with our sacred community. So please join me in saying, and so it is. Blessed be.
And so it is.
So it is. Thank you so much, Alice. And let's welcome with some snaps and claps, Judith Roberts. Yay!
Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for that introduction, Reverend Sunshine. And Alice, thank you for that beautiful prayer. It was, as I said before, it was perfect. As I said before when we were meeting before the meeting, I love your opening prayers. So yes, I'm excited about this topic. It's a deep and a rich topic, the impact of othering. I'm going to open with some definitions of othering. But first I'll tell you how this evening, how I anticipate it's going to unfold. And that is, I want to discuss what othering is. And then I'm going to do something a little different, and that's to ask you all, kind of in the beginning here, why you think we other each other. Why do humans other? And you'll understand that question a little more after you hear the definition of othering. And I'm going to talk about types of othering. I think there's 2 main types I want to talk about. And I'm going to open up breakout rooms in pairs and invite you to share, if you choose to. This is totally optional, but if you choose to, a time when you have felt othered and how you responded to that, and a time when you may have othered someone else. So this could be a very rich discussion, and then I'll offer an opportunity to share. We're going to then move into how do we bridge and overcome othering? And I'm going to ask you for some thoughts on that, some suggestions of how do we move beyond this separation, this dichotomy, this us, them consciousness. And then I will be closing with a with a quote and an affirmation. So to start with talking about a couple of definitions, one of them says, othering is the process of creating a distinction between an in-group and an out-group by emphasizing differences, leading to the stigmatization of the out-group based on stereotypes and hierarchies, ultimately reinforcing the identity of the in-group. It involves the creation of an us-them dichotomy, establishing a sense of superiority or inferiority based on perceived differences. And there are many ways that I'm putting other in quotes, that we other people. Racism, homophobia, transphobia, poverty, incarceration, homelessness, mental illness, neurodiversity, politics, disability, fat shaming, food insecurity, and more encompass authentic human experiences warranting inclusion at the table. So there are so many ways, and this is a human phenomenon. This is a human phenomenon. Othering takes place in every culture, throughout the world. And so I would like to ask you, and Peter, you can help me if you see some raised hands. I'd just like to ask you to share your thoughts on why do human beings, why do we do this? Why do we other others? Would anyone like to give some ideas on that?
Alice, Kay, go ahead.
I think we do it out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And then we attack the other person for being different than we are. And it hurts. It's a really bad feeling when you're on the receiving end of that. And I don't like to think about myself othering other people, but I'm certain that I've done it in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a good question. Why do we do this?
Yeah,
we know better, right? We know better, but we still.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we get triggered and we just behave in this way where we just want to attack the other person. And that's what we're trying to not do when we talk about a world that works for everyone, is accepting people right where they're at, which is really important.
Yes. Thank you, Alice. Thank you. Anyone else? Margot? You're muted.
This is kind of a very interesting topic. Did we used to talk about othering as differences and noticing that people had differencing? I feel like I have a vast and wonderful conditioning around differences, that I delight in differences, to embrace differences, to love and to talk to anybody that I can physically, like in the book, The Cast. The number one thing I loved about it was that our eyes just see physical differences, and that can be neutral, that can be wonderful, and that can be the beginning of isms. So it feels like I know people my age that don't even know this word othering used in this really negative sense. So I know it's changed. I know that with young people in particular, there's a sensitivity now, but I feel some loss in, is it not okay to just love what you see that is different in people? So when does it become the negative thing Alice was talking about? And I definitely have experienced being left out and, not being in the in thing. And, a woman of my age has experienced discrimination for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Margot. Thank you. And what you're describing of loving the differences is not othering. That's embracing. That's bridging. But
that can get you in trouble now.
well, you'll have an opportunity to talk about that in a breakout room. Yeah. Yeah. So, but does so what you're describing about loving the differences is not what we're talking about in othering. It's when people are, and actually this leads into one of the things I was going to talk about of the different kinds of othering. But one kind of othering is deliberate othering. It's when people are deliberately driving a wedge in between or deliberately putting themselves up and somebody else down. You know, it's a thing that people do. And so to go to this question of why do human beings others, Alice mentioned fear. And I have in my notes here, othering is rooted in fear of the unknown, fear of being wrong, fear of being out of control. And I found that list in some of my CSL notes, but I added myself, fear of loss of identity. Sometimes, you know, people are so identified with themselves in a certain way that the person who's different in some way threatens their sense of who they are, threatens their sense of their identity. And so othering can serve as a defense mechanism to protect our own identity and maintain a sense of security. And it puts distance between ourselves from potential threats or perceived threats or challenges to our beliefs and values. Challenges to beliefs and values is another another thing that causes othering. So when I mentioned types of othering, there's the deliberate intentional kind. And then there's also unintentional othering that takes place. And that's when othering takes place out of ignorance. When we're unconscious that we're causing hurt. We're unconscious that something is offensive to someone else. And it is offensive. And so we have this opportunity to learn and to grow. And it takes real looking and asking and looking at ourselves, learning, questioning, being open to understand and being open to input. And I wanted to give a couple of examples that are current in the news of othering in politics, which was mentioned in that list I read earlier, because these are two kind of dramatic examples. And one of them is that, and they're both about the running mates. There's one from each side, a comment from each side. Kamala Harris running mate Tim Kautz said about Republicans, these are weird people on the other side. They want to take books away. They want to be in your exam room. And he just, that weird comment just took off. But he's saying these are weird people on the other side. So there he's clearly saying he's making an us and a them. You know, and in those words, we're the good guys, the Democrats are the good guys, and they're the weird ones. And it was so black and white, such a dramatic statement. But then on the other hand, Trump's running mate in 2021, in an interview on Fox News, said he was then a Senate candidate, Vance, and he complained that the US was being run by Democrats, corporate oligarchs, and, quote, a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices they've made. And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. So they're both, you know, they're both on these us and them. It's them, the Republicans, and them, the Democrats. And of course, now we've come to expect this in politics, and each side is trying to win. So they're trying to, you know, diminish the other side, but they're making these huge generalizations. And of course, huge generalizations never fit. You know, but it is what they're doing in their campaigning. And I just thought that was interesting because it's really current in the news, that example of othering. It's totally an example of othering. So I wanted to invite us to go into breakout rooms in twos. We'll just do 2 people in a room. And I want to invite you to share with your partner, share with someone else. If you have been othered, share an example, one example of what happened and how it impacted you. And then if you have othered someone else, share one example of what happened and what you learned from it. So Peter, could you oh, and you're going to have 4 minutes each. So each of you will have those 2 questions. And then at 4 minutes, Peter will send a message that it's time to switch. So Peter, could you open the breakout rooms, please?
Hey, okay, have fun.
So my question is answered. I can see the breakout rooms and I can see who's in them and all that stuff. So I could next time move people around. Good to know.
Okay, so you didn't want to go into a breakout room?
Oh no, remember I said I needed not to be in one? Oh, because we moved it to the end. I can go in with Lula. Yeah.
I'll
I'll
move
do-
you guys. I'll
I'm-
move you guys to another room. so
I'll just no, I can go in and join Lula, I think. Let me try
you
it.
can.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Can you do it? Great.
Okay, well, welcome back. Welcome, everyone. I wanted to ask if anybody would like to share anything from that conversation that the rest of us would like to hear or benefit from. I know my partner and I had a very robust, interesting conversation.
Reverend Sunshine?
Yeah, we had a good conversation too. Othering, as you said, Judith, happens in so many ways. Sometimes, consciously, as you mentioned, but sometimes, as I was going to say before, is out of ignorance and unknowing. And I think what really comes into play is intent and impact, because if it's done out of ignorance and they're just unaware and they harm somebody by making them feel othered, and then if someone witnesses it and tries to explain that, or they found out that they hurt somebody somehow, a lot of times I have heard, well, I don't know why, because I didn't intend that. It doesn't matter what you intend. It's the impact that happens, where it landed. And so that othering can really be harmful unintentionally, but unless someone is open to have a conversation about it, you can't get anywhere with it.
Right. So that opening, the open, I mean, there's a message for all of us to listen and to receive the information, because we were blinded, we had a blind spot and just were unaware. And to be, it's an ongoing, it's probably a lifelong process, I'm guessing, of just opening and learning and listening and taking it in, and then course correcting and being more sensitive and more conscious. Thank you, Reverend Sunshine.
Yeah.
Reverend Deb, go ahead.
So one of the scenarios that I shared in our group was when I was in Savannah, Georgia, and the company I was working with, and I had the opportunity to hire an individual who is female-bodied but identified as male. And so when I was going through the application process, submitting it through, I sent it up through my boss initially. And the response that came back, because I explained, because he wanted to maintain his female name. And so I explained this to my boss. And so my boss's response that came back was, well, they're just confused. It's like, if her name is this, then that's what she is. And I'm like, no, that's not how he identifies. And he said, well, there's just something wrong with them. And I was like, no, there's not. I said, in this day and age of where we are, we really have to start learning and understanding to talk to people and see where they are and how they identify. And because even when I interviewed him, and first thing I asked once he showed up, and I asked him, I said, how do you identify? And he said, it's like, he said, thank you for asking that question. And so he told me the story. And so it makes us become more aware. But for me to try to explain that to my previous boss, it was not registering, or he was not accepting it. And it just made it seem like, well, he's just confused. And it's like, that's not right. He's going to, it's like, we're going to call her or her. And I was like, if that's not how he identifies, then please don't do that. But that was my kind of that othering thing, especially in the southern areas, that we come across that a lot. So that was my share for my group.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And it's such a current, example, because we're in this new world of gender pronouns, because I'm calling it a new world, because for me, it's been in the last 5 years probably that I've become sensitive to this, as you're describing it, Reverend Deb. And thank you for that. Thank you for that. It's a great example. Does anyone else have an example or want to share something from their breakout room? Reverend
Allie, go ahead.
Yeah, I almost put this in my talk, and it can only be 20 minutes, so I didn't. But I was thinking about the very subtle ways we do it, where it's not malicious, but it's still not a great thing. We see a group and we think, oh, I know who those people are, and treat them as a group, and kind of don't really have more curiosity. Like, I remember when I first came to OCSL, I looked around, there's this group of very nice looking older people, mostly older than me. I thought, there's like these nice retired people. I could imagine them puttering around their garden, and didn't think much more about it. And then I started taking classes and heard things like, about the 5 years I spent in the Peace Corps in Africa, from someone on this call, or when I worked for Ram Dass, or the time I met Ernest Holmes, or yeah, that walking around India. I was like, what? There's just, how it can be very subtle, even when it's not malicious, and yet you lose out on the richness, that from really being open to hearing people's stories and being really curious and that sort of thing. So that was it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you very much. Al, and anyone else?
Marco, go ahead.
Okay, well, I like both the sharing. Thank you, Reverend Sunshine, for your comments. I just had recently a really big come to Jesus kind of thing in my family. And my entire family was there, and my granddaughter brought a friend from, well, she brought a friend, and she was afraid that he thought that I didn't like him from the first time I met him. So I was all ready to be my most interested, wondering self, and I started asking him questions and stuff. And all of a sudden, something happened, which later everybody said, "You can't say that to him. You really, to use Reverend Sunshine's word, impacted him." And I'm telling you, I went through this thing of being shamed and judged and whatever because I had been asking him questions, and then I stopped and I said, well, I don't know. Is it okay, like in your family, to have someone ask you questions? And then I said, or in your culture? And apparently that was it. That was the othering. That when I asked him about his culture, I made him other. And to me, it was something I feel like I've done my whole life, and nobody's ever given me feedback. And people love to talk about if I ask them about how they do this in their culture. But one of the things my daughter said later, she said, he just wants to be an American boy. Doesn't want you. You could have asked him about his family, but not about his culture. So there are rules now. There are very, very different rules, and nobody gave me the benefit of the doubt of my intentions. So Reverend Sunshine is so right. It's still, and he never has said anything to me, and they haven't let us even come together again to make peace or whatever needs to happen. It's been a big suffering thing for me, to tell the truth. And I don't know all the rules, but I had thought back that most of the people that I haven't had tons of people that I get to ask about their culture, but I think they all were born in their culture. And this young man is an American boy who happens to come from another culture other than white, whatever you call it, Anglo-Saxon culture. So I'll just throw that out. I'm still in the midst of healing that, but there's new awareness that is needed. I forgive myself. I'm loving myself again. I know I was just trying to be warm and friendly and lovely to him, but I did a bad thing, I guess.
How's his perception?
Thank you, Margot. Thank you. Yeah, and that's so current. Thank you for sharing something that's still so kind of raw.
Trying to still figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I sure don't want to be othering anybody and impacting them in a hurtful way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not with your big heart. I know that about you.
But I was even told, like, if I hear someone with a West African accent, I just want to say, is it all right if I ask you where you're from? But in case they're from Cameroon, and we can talk about Cameroon. But I've been told I can't do that anymore.
Wow. Thank you, Margot.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Or if anyone has wisdom for me.
Well, Marco, you bring up a really interesting point that, and I don't know the right answer, and when you've heard me say, I believe we can listen each other into wholeness, this hits right in here, because if we can learn from experiences like you're having, and then and lean into each other and do our spiritual practices, we can come to a conversation. Because I like Judith said, with your big heart, I mean, I think you have a lot of love to offer. We have a lot of love to offer. So we don't know those points that might hurt someone's feelings or not. And there's certain rules as you talk about, but maybe not for everybody. So it's like we have to try to figure out ways where we can communicate with one another. And that's what I would like to have happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Reverend Sunshine, that's a beautiful segue into what I wanted to ask next of the group
Can
about.
we just take Miss Lula's hand?
Lula,
Oh,
Lula
is
has-
Lula? I didn't
yeah.
see Lula's hand. Yes, Lula.
Well, I was thinking, I'm a person who I don't mind questions, but if the whole conversation is you quizzing me, that's like a quiz show. If you ask the question and then that jumps off into a conversation, an exchange, that's okay. But a conversation that just peppered with questions is, for me, is not very pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Because a conversation is give and take.
Mhm.
And so it's okay to ask some questions, but somewhere in the answer, if you're listening, there's something that you can, and everything that you wanted to know, you can find a way to weave it in and get that.
Mhm.
So it's nothing wrong with questions, but if that's the gist of the conversation.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Well, and Lula and Reverend Sunshine, both of you have offered me a great segue into what I wanted to ask next of the group. And that is, we want to talk about now bridging and overcoming othering. And I have a quote here from the CSL notes that I reviewed for this talk. And they said, we are invited to transcend the illusory boundaries that separate us from one another. We are encouraged to perceive the underlying oneness, harmony, and eternity that exists, ultimately dissolving the divisive notion of othering. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of the ways that you think that we can overcome and bridge othering? And both of you have just offered some ways, but I want to open it up to see if anyone else has any ways that they can think of that we can bridge this us them divisive mentality.
I'll just throw in the one word I just used, curiosity.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
Which doesn't help Margot.
Yeah.
Just a little aside, the thing that came when Margot talked was we have to be attentive not just to our intent but our impact.
Yeah.
But the other thing is you also can't control what the impact is going to be.
Right.
It's just continuing sensitivity and struggle. We're all struggling to do this in a way that feels good.
Yeah, we are. Thank you for that, Ali. I want to offer something which may not come to mind immediately, but that is breaking bread with people, sharing a meal. And I want to share an experience I had recently on the 4th of July. I went to the beach at Alameda Beach, and it was really hot and I needed to sit in the shade. So there was this wall with trees and shade, and these 4 Muslim women sitting against the wall, all dressed in black, completely covered, and but with faces showing. And I asked if I could sit in front of them because that's where where the shade was that was available, and they said yes. So I sat there, and they were behind me and talking for a long time in a language I didn't understand. I remember one of them got up a couple times, went out to near the water's edge where her husband was with a child, took the child. But when she went out to the edge when she left the spot they were in, she put a veil up and covered her face so only her eyes would show. And then when she came back, she took her veil down when she was with the other women. And it was just, they had a couple children, and I just was there, and then all of a sudden, one of them turned to me and said, "Would you like some coffee and cake?" And I was so surprised. And so I accepted the coffee, and then we had coffee together, and we had a really lovely conversation, and they introduced themselves, and I learned they were from Yemen. And one of them told me she was born here, very much like Margot's, I was learning about them and they were learning about me. And it was just a lovely conversation. And they opened it and they bridged that difference between us with offering me coffee and cake. It was very, very sweet. So that was a lovely experience recently. Anybody else want to share some ideas of bridging the otherness, overcoming and bridging the otherness?
I think I will add two things, and that's listening. I say that again, listening is so important, and vulnerability. If you feel comfortable in talking about yourself and your own experience, you can only talk from your own experience. It opens the door, at least my experience is that it opens the door for others to talk about theirs. And I love what Reverend Allie said about curiosity, and I put wonderment with that. If we lean in, because I talk about leaning in, if we lean in with curiosity and wonderment, we stand down our perceptions and our judgments, and then we listen, then we open the door for someone to share. So Judith, your example, you simply were there and you were respectful. You asked their permission, you sat there, you noticed, but and then they opened the door for the conversation. So sometimes it's as simple as that, without putting the initiative forward to, as Miss Lula said, ask the questions that maybe they weren't ready for. Somebody else might have been, but maybe in Margot's case, that person wasn't.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that. And you're giving me a beautiful segue, because we're coming to our final minutes here. And I wanted to share something that Barack Obama said recently about Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's running mate. I'm only saying this because I love what he said. He said, Tim's signature is his ability to talk like a human being and treat everyone with decency and respect. And I thought, wow, may all of us have that same signature, to talk like a human being and treat everyone with decency and respect. And this one quote that we have, I want to share, which speaks to what's gone before. Several of you have actually spoken to this. This is a quote by Sarah Schulman, and she said, "Nothing disrupts dehumanization more quickly than inviting someone over, looking into their eyes, hearing their voice, and listening." I love that. So the emphasis there is listening. I'm going to close with a quote that was actually part of our Sunday service last Sunday. It was one of the readings, and I just loved it. So I'm going to repeat it for those who may not have heard it, or even if you have heard it, it's worth repeating. This was from Dr. John Powell, from Othering Belonging Institute at UC Berkeley. And he says, the reality is that we're not separate. We are deeply connected to each other. But how do we actually learn to celebrate that, to exercise the muscle, to recognize it? We are connected, but how do we actually live that connection? And what we do is figure all these ways to pretend we're not connected. our sexual orientation, our race, our gender, our age, our language, our disability. We use all these things to try to pretend that we're not connected. And when we pretend we're not connected, we're in the process of othering. We're in the process of denying not only someone's humanity, but our own humanity, and denying our connectedness. So I just, I think that's so important, you know, to remember that when we're othering, we are not only denying someone else's humanity, but denying our own humanity, denying our connectedness. Because what do we teach in Science of Mind? Oneness. So we're just continually exercising that muscle to experience and remember and be our oneness. So I have a closing affirmation. This is also from last Sunday, and I want to invite you to say, I'm going to say a phrase of it and invite you to repeat it after me. So the first part of it is, I treat all life with dignity and respect.
I treat all
Treat
life
all life with dignity and respect.
respect.
Honoring our divine connection,
Honoring our divine connection.
I extend my heart of welcoming and belonging
I
Extend my heart of
It's in my heart of welcoming and belonging
to all life,
to
in-
all life.
to all life instead of othering.
instead of othering.
To all life instead of othering. So I'm going to read the whole thing now so you can just hear it, because I know when it's in segments, it might not be as easy to follow. I treat all life with dignity and respect, honoring our divine connection. I extend my heart of welcoming and belonging to all life instead of othering. Thank you very much.
I'm glad you like that, Judith. That was one of my own. So thank you.
I thought it might be. I thought it might be, and maybe the quote above too.
Yeah, well, no, for John Powell, thank you for reading that because it was so poignant. That's why I chose that one. It was a longer one rather than two. So I want to thank you for such a beautiful talk this evening with all of your different questions and putting us in breakout rooms and conversations. Let's give some snaps and claps, some emojis, and some love to Judith Roberts for a beautiful talk.
Thank you.
Yay. And now, beloveds, we
pleasure,
go
my
on.
pleasure.
Yes, thank you. We're going on to our announcements. So please stay. We're almost at the end and we're going to have a closing prayer, so you won't want to miss it. So as we go to our announcements, this coming Sunday, please join me as I resume the pulpit, having been gone for 2 weeks. And I'll be speaking on Trauma 101 as we continue the exploration of unstatus quo. Meditation starts at 10 and it's followed by the service at 10:30. And then next week, Robert Leeds continues on this exploration of unstatus quo on Wednesday, August 14th at Midweek Oasis on a deeper conversation of Trauma 101. Meditation is at 6:30. Our service starts at 7 p.m. by Zoom. You can go to our website at oaklandcsl.org, click services for the Zoom link. Please join our ongoing daily community spiritual practice using our Little Green Abundance book, the 40-Day Prosperity Plan by John Randolph Price. We're in our 6th round. We've done it since January the 1st, and we keep on going. It's a year of prosperity. So today we are on the 20th day of the program. We're using the 10th affirmation in the book. Please follow along daily in the order that the affirmations appear. This coming Saturday, the annual Laurel Street Fair World Music Festival will be held on August 10th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's located between 35th Avenue and Maybell Avenue, right here in Oakland. OCSL will have a booth we've had for the last several years. We're actively looking for volunteers to assist. So if you are interested and available, we need your support. to help set up, break down, or man the booth, please contact Linda Wyman at our bookstore. There's also a sign-in table if you're at, well, you won't be at the center until Sunday, right? So you need to contact Linda Wyman at bookstore@oaklandcsl.org. That's bookstore@oaklandcsl.org. And we'd also like for you to join us a week from Saturday, August 17th, from 12 to 5 p.m. for the Ultimate Family Reunion of our Centers of Spiritual Living in Oakland. 3 of our centers: Oakland Center for Spiritual Living, the East Bay Church of Religious Science, and Heart and Soul Center of Light. This event will be held at the Martin Luther King Jr. Regional Shoreline Park in Oakland. Now is the time to register. And I know we've just gotten up the registration form, but you know, the registration closes for food, that is, this coming Monday, August 12th. And not many people have signed up. I really want to encourage you to come. I want Oakland CSL to show up strong at this event, this collaboration event. To order t-shirts or to order food. So please go on our website, oaklandcsl.org, click on events, and you can get your registration form there. Join our growing movement of My Election Intention. It's 100 days of mindful practice. From July 28th, we've already started. It goes to November 4th. It's not too late to join. It was created by our CSL minister brother, Reverend Dr. David Alexander, called Tune Out Fear, Tune In Vision, based on 10 somatic healing principles, based on the book by Prentice Hemphill, What It Takes to Heal. I'm one of the voices that you will hear on the daily. Once you if you text join, the word join, JOIN, to the number that you see on your screen, 470-784-0250. You will hear daily inspirational audio messages, and I am one of them over the course of these 100 days. So please sign up for that. Our August nonprofit partner is Women's Daytime Drop-In Center. And this agency provides a safe space, warm meals, counseling, and support to identify housing for any homeless women, houseless women, and their children during the day when shelters are closed. This agency, called WDDC, it's Women's Daytime Drop-In Center, serves an average of 400 women and children each month. It's beautiful work. Many of their daily activities include cooking 2 warm meals for these a day for these families, and are performed by volunteers. So they'd love our support. You can reach them at www.womensdropin.org for information. And to add to this, we have a donation barrel that is right now in our social hall that they're requesting donations for their year-round supply needs, that you can place your donations in the barrel located there in the education building, right there where we've had other barrel collections. And there are detailed descriptions of some of the sundry items that they need. So we thank you in advance for supporting and giving your donations. Visit our Spirit Treasure bookstore. They're having a store-wide sale. Linda Wyman is so good at this. Guess what? 40% off all books and 30% off all merchandise. You can't beat it. Go to bookstore@oaklandcsl.org to take advantage of some of the August sales, but more importantly, come on in to the center. Come to the bookstore so that you can take advantage of these sales. And last but not least, for these announcements, we have more, but there's this one about helping to save our climate, and it's the Oakland Alameda Adaptation Committee. It's discussing ways to mitigate the effects of sea level rising along the Oakland Alameda shoreline. There's 2 events, informational meetings that are coming up next week on Monday, August 12th and Thursday, August 15th. I don't have the times, and I know the slide is blurry and you can't see it. So you'll have to go to their website. I probably have to say this twice. It's OAACADAPT. It's OAAC Adapt. OAAC, the word adapt.org. Go to their events page for more information. And now it's time to highlight our beautiful contact team. But first, before I forget, I want to urge you to go to csl.org, which is our Centers for Spiritual Living global website, our global parent. The website tells you all the things that are going on across our organization. You can also visit Oakland CSL, our own website.org, oaklandcsl.org, and sign up for our newsletter there, as we talked about earlier, the Village News. Remember to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Special updates and content you'll only find there by liking and subscribing to Oakland Center, and we encourage you to do that. This beautiful contact team, if you take a look at them, this is just a smidgen of our leadership at Oakland Center. To meet all your needs. Myself as senior minister, Beth Van Arkel is our board president. Susan Brecker, practitioner emeritus, is our facilities coordinator, facilities use coordinator. Steve Carter is our operations coordinator. Our own Alice Knudsen, who's on the line today, is our new world. I started to say World Ministry of Prayer, but that'll work. She's our Ministry of Prayer coordinator. Dow Becker is our bookkeeper, and we're holding Paul Pursuti and his family in the light of love. He deals with facilities, and there's so many other people that support our beautiful center. So this is how you can contact each of us. And now, beloveds, is our time for joyous giving. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to give it, whether you want to go to oaklandcsl.org to our donate page, or if you're already queued up for auto giving, or you come to the center on Sundays and give to the basket. However you give, and of your time and your talent, we appreciate it. And so if you will just put your hand on your heart, if you will, and you can say out loud on mute, let us say this affirmation together. Joyously I give with an attitude of abundance, knowing that as I give, I do receive. And we do. And so it is. And the way you give is to go to oaklandcsl.org. You click on donate. You come to this next page, which tells you the various ways that you can give, either by credit card. You can mail in your donation in the mail. You can give by Zelle. You can text to give. You can use the QR code that will take you to our donate page. You can give on Sunday when you come. There's lots of ways to give. And last but not least, we want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do and all that you give, for coming tonight. And I certainly want to thank our Oasis team, Peter Gum up in Oregon on the slide deck and leading our effort here. Alice Knudsen doing muting and the prayer. We thank you for that, Alice, the opening prayer. Alice Herndon, we have Alice squared, Alice Herndon is spotlighting. Margot Tabbitt did the meditation. Thanks so much, Margot. Remember, Rev Allie is here for comfort care, so you can put in the chat to either myself or Peter right now if you want to have prayer or talk with Reverend Allie separately after the service. And then we're going to have a closing prayer. Did I forget anything, team? I think this is it. Rev Allie is going to do our closing prayer, so don't go anywhere so that you can be blessed. Ready, set, go.
Lots of enthusiasm. Let's take that into a blending of that enthusiasm and the quietness of the peace inside, and let it just bubble and permeate through all of our body and our mind and our spirit. And know that there is only that one presence that one presence that created everything, that poured itself into the creation to delight in it, that is the source of all our enthusiasm and the source of all our inner peace and quiet and knowingness. We know this evening is blessed. We know that the words spoken here will settle in our minds during the week. They will help to bring us clarity about these difficult issues we face about how to deal with othering, how to make sure that our intentions land in exactly the way we would like, how to deal with it when they don't, how to just bring a greater sense of oneness, of empathy, of understanding, of curiosity, of gentleness, both for ourselves and other people, into all of our interactions. We know that as we let that greater awareness bubble up through us, it will impact everyone we meet throughout the week. The one mind connecting between our mind and the minds of others, so that we all come away with a greater sense of awareness and knowingness and clarity and peace and understanding and oneness. And we are so grateful to know that this oneness, that is the truth of our being, the truth of everyone's beingness. And we take that into the world with us. And in that spirit of gratitude, we anchor this prayer and say, and so it is.
So it is.